Hello, this is DM Rob G, and welcome to DM Rob G Reviews. Now, I know it's been a while since my last review. I have been tooling around and seeing what I like. I realize that that the reviews I have been making haven't really been working. So I decided to practice some and basically come up with a new format. I hope this does much better. The first show I am doing is called Lost Girl. Lost Girl is a Canadian TV show that first aired in Canada in 2010. It stayed in Canada until July 12th, 2011, when it appeared in Australia and the United Kingdom, where it appeared on the Sci-Fi Channel of September 1st that same year. It finally came to the United States on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken, on July 16th, 2012. It actually wound up becoming one of my favorite shows. Now, it would air for 5 seasons, ultimately ending in 2015. Now, I'm going to do my best with this one. Not only is this video the first in what I hope to be a very successful video format, this is one of the weakest intros I've ever seen. Now, keep in mind, I'm not talking about the show itself. This is a good Lost Girl episode. However, as an intro, it deserves to be a lot better. For one, it hardly explains the world we are, but the pilot episode also hardly introduces anyone other than one member of the main cast. Granted, it is the main character of the series, Bo, but we could have really used some introduction to some of her allies. Now, I'm going to try something here. I'm going to go through the synopsis of the first episode and not say anything else about it. Now, what I want you to do is go ahead and kind of keep those questions to yourself until I get after my synopsis, where I explain more about the world itself. Then I will do one of two things. One, I will show you the main intro screen, which is shown in every episode except for this one. Two, I will explain more about the world around it. Now, I want you to go ahead and see how many questions you have that are actually... So let's begin. Who meet Bo, played by Anna Silk, who will serve as the main protagonist throughout the entire show. Bo is having an average night for a bartender who even remotely attractive.
High sales in the division, and then in the morning I'm flying back to Omaha.
That's great.
And this one's for you.
Now, creepy dude here is just creepy until we are introduced to a pickpocket played by Ksenia Solo. They talk, leave, only to catch Bo's attention. In the show, pickpocket and creepy dude are in an elevator where pickpocket starts to not feel well. She starts to pass out. The assault is interrupted by Bo, who appears to be living some sort of fantasy for creepy dude, until she sucks out his soul. We are introduced to our next main cast, Tweedledwolf and Tweety Bird, both of whom clearly work for the police department. They are currently investigating the death of Creepy Dude, and they have this really weird conversation.
Vic's human.
Yeah, killer definitely wasn't.
Well, our side?
I hope not. This is sloppy. Leaving a feed behind like this? I don't recognize this kind of kill. You?
Given the language, it is clear that they are police type 23B, partners working to help cover up any supernatural events from the public eye. Speaking of which, Bo is next seen cleaning out her apartment. She's clearly running away as the pickpocket starts to wake up, and the pickpocket, whose name is Kenzie, starts to realize that Bo basically saved her from an assault.
Would have dropped you home, but none of these wallets appear to be yours. It's a nice little sideline you got going.
I'm a collector of rare wallets.
I'm not judging.
She takes that entire moment and sort of chalks it up to an aspect of the drugs until she looks at her cell phone, which leads to what is probably the biggest what the fuck moment of her life. After a short scene of them bantering, they leave to get some people food. Tweedledwolf and Tweety Bird manage to actually get Bo's address. Which, I mean, here's the thing. If you're the type of person who is able to suck out souls, why would you ever give your real address out to people? Which, I mean, that's just me. But as they leave, they pass Tweedledwolf, and they just really kind of weird scene where they pass each other in slow motion. And I'm going to leave that scene there for a moment. Bo and Kinsey try to duck into an alley, but she and Kinsey are both ambushed. This leads them to fall under Tweety Bird's, basically, sphere of control. He uses a hypnotic whistle to knock out both Kinsey and Bo into a van. As the van drives off, Kinsey is seen getting a picture of the license plate. Now we are brought to setting number 52-C. It's seemingly abandoned warehouse / industry area that is actually used as a meeting ground for a secret society of supernatural beings. Only to meet Tweedledwolf, who reveals himself to have transformation powers, as he shifts his face from human to something a bit more furry. Next, she meets someone known as the Ash, who basically says, "Hey, I'm in charge of one half of the faeworld." He is interrupted by someone known as the Morgan, who is in charge of the second half of the faeworld. Basically, the Ash then says, we need you to pick a side A or B without any knowledge of who or what we are and what we represent. Prepare for mortal combat. Now, Bo fights two creatures. One is a physical fight, where she actually does really well with a two-handed blade. The other, however, is much more threatening. Sneaking up behind Bo, he manages to trap her in this sort of mental realm where he is just feed off her insecurities. Based on what the episode shows us, this creature is a pain eater. He eats pain from various creatures. He is also able to give a mental poison, which helps feed him. This will, of course, kill Bo. Now, as the scene goes on, it's very clear that as he feeds off of Bo's insecurities, he is getting closer and closer to the point where she is actually about to consume this poison. Kinsey, however, manages to find the address of this glass factory, which, I don't know why you would put down the address of your secret lair as a registration address. That just makes no sense to me. Hey, Minion 2! Did you register the van like I asked with the Department of Motor Vehicles? Yes, but wouldn't that but what address do I use? Go ahead and use the glass factory we use for all our secret meetings. But wouldn't that tell everyone where we are? Why, it's not like they can look up our address using just a license plate. Good point. Now, thanks to Kinsey's intervention, Bo is snapped out of that hypnotic mental danger land.
She's mine.
Now, at this point, Bo is told to pick a side, and she picks a side of humans. Here, the episode ends. Let me show you something that can explain at least some of your questions. Every episode, except for this one, has this opener.
Life is hard when you don't know who you are. It's harder when you don't know what you are. My love carries a death sentence. I was lost for years, searching while hiding, only to find that I belong to a world hidden from humans. I won't hide anymore. I will live the life I choose.
So imagine this opener popping up right after Bo leaves the elevator. Now, that doesn't seem like it does much, but it changes several things in that synopsis. For one, right away we know that there's this sort of secret society. We know a lot about Bo. She doesn't know what she is. Granted, she says that in the episode, but it's not really reinforced through Bo. It's reinforced through other people finding out what she is. However, the audience learns about Bo doesn't know who she is through this discovery. This is DM Rob G in editing. I didn't realize how badly that sentence was phrased. What I mean to say is the audience isn't aware of the mystery until these other characters reveal it. Bo herself doesn't reveal it at all. Alright, thanks. Right away, we also know the secret society, which makes Tweedledwolf and Tweedlebird's conversation much more poignant and much more clear if you are not already familiar with the tropes and language that they are using. Tweedledewolf, whose name is actually Dice, is shown in this intro to be a werewolf. Now, Remember that really weird scene where they pass each other?
No, what you need is some kind of manager.
Just the inclusion of this intro changes that dynamic. Because as Dyson's passing them, he is getting Bo's scent, just as Bo is realized she's being followed. Granted, this doesn't tell us much about Tweety Bird, whose name is actually Hale. But it does show that they both are part of the secret world. This puts more emphasis on their investigation. Now, this might not seem like it changes much, but for me, and the first time I saw it, and the second time I saw it, there was a much bigger difference in what I was feeling at the time. For one, when I realized a little bit about that secret society, there was much more emphasis on Dyson tracking Bo down versus, okay, I get you're protecting your society. Oh, look, what will happen next? Had I realized that before I actually saw this episode, I would have had different emotions than I had. When I first saw it, it was more like, okay, who are they and what are they doing? Now when I look at it, the emotions are more like, okay, I know that you're protecting yourselves. I don't know why or who, but this makes you much more of a danger rather than an unrelated CSI story. Now, for me, it's even the second time I've seen it, it's not clear why the leaders of the Fae culture are saying things like, oh, we need her to choose a side. There's no reason for that. Now, even with this intro, it's a tiny bit more clear why the two leaders are saying you have to pick a side. There's a secret society, and we're introduced to two sides. The idea that they are part of a secret society and they're tracking down Bo helps emphasize the scene a tiny bit more, at least to me, in the second time I've seen it. And that scene is even addressed later on as Bo says, I don't know who I am, I don't know what I am. Everything just kind of falls in place and makes a bit more sense when you have a small idea of what's going on. Now, the entire series centers around a secret world where fairy creatures exist in human forms. It's basically a world where magical humans exist. However, these magical humans are based on myths from around the world, and primarily Celtic myths. The light and the dark side of the Fae exist in Celtic lore that is mirrored in this fairy society in Lost Girl. However, a key to this is that it is in Celtic myth. There are indeed helpful fairy in Celtic myth. There are indeed helpful fairy in Lost Girl, but true to Celtic myth, many of these helpful fae are also self-interested and not like Tinkerbell in any way, shape, or form. The light and dark side division really depends on whether the fairy in question wants to view humans as playthings, or if they coexist at the same time as humans. The dark side would actively prey on humans and sees them as lesser beings. The light side has more of a, we can coexist with humans. But at the same time, the light side is like, well, this fake kidnapped a human. That's bad, and we need to cover ourselves up. So it's sad that humans have died, but we need to preserve the Fae way of life. So instead of revealing ourselves, let's just take these other dead humans that our Fae killed, frame the human accomplice of a fairy or something. In addition, the light side also actively preys on humans, but they do so in a much more beneficial factor. For example, there is one type of fae that feeds off of dead bodies. That fairy gets the bodies directly from the morgue, from bodies that don't have anyone to claim them, or bodies that are being cremated where where parts of the body can go to that fae and the other half can go right into the cremation machine. I try to explain these characters. I'm going to be briefed so I can avoid spoilers, but I think to really understand exactly what we're missing with the brevity of the character introductions, I think I need to go over some of it to an extent. Like, for example, Bo. Bo is a succubus. She can be seen feasting off of the spiritual energy out of people, as well as using the powers of seduction. These two powers we see in the pilot. Fine, good. I just want to emphasize how much I really like Bo. For one, she is seen using her available as as basically a food source. Bah. So much cat hair. Now, which is good because she becomes a bisexual icon that we desperately... Now, she does have a preference and is clear later on in the series, but is played subtly enough to where it seems natural. This, combined with the fact that Bo uses sex as an extension of Bo's self rather than her entire being, makes her one of my favorite characters. Like, yes, she has sex. The show acknowledges that, but it's never main center. It is part of a couple of gags here and there, but really that's it. They'll mention it for a few seconds and then just leave it. It works out really great because that's basically real life. People really don't go around announcing sex at every single turn. Announcing sex at every single turn. The sex is played much more naturally with Bo than it is in a lot of things I've seen. Hey, this is DM Rob G in post-production. I did not realize this at the time, but there are quite a few scenes later on where she is quite sexualized. I just forgot about them when I made this first video. And I'll cover them as they come up. Alright, back to the video. Kenzie, played by Ksenia Solo, is Bo's right hand. She's human, of course, but she shows herself to be capable and resourceful, pretty much equal to the fae she deals with every day. She basically finds herself undercover, relying on her wit and wisdom to get out with her health, psyche, and limbs all intact. She is shown to have a variety of contacts, as we see in this episode, where she's able to get information. She's also able to get things like passes to exclusive parties, that sort of thing. Overall, I find her utterly amazing. She's a wonderful actress. Like, I will show some of her stuff off later on as I review more episodes. For now, let's just leave it there. Dyson, played by Chris Holden Reed, is a werewolf, as we see. He is a police officer who serves the light side of the Fae. But as we see in this episode, he actually spends a few moments trying to help Bo as much as he can without endangering his position in the Light Fae or in the police department. He is shown serving the light side above all, sure, but again, Bo is getting some information here and there from him. He helps her build up her strength for that final fight, for example. Hale, played by Casey Collins, serves as Dyson's partner on the police force. Together, Dyson and Hale actually investigate Fae on human crime. Now, Hale is a siren, and this series shows him using his siren powers as a sort of whistle. Which, I mean, fine. Every mythos has their version of the siren song. I get that. Now, Lauren, played by Zoe Palmer, serves as the doctor to the light-aligned Fae. She actually helps Bo with her powers and with helping to find out who she actually is. And is Bo's primary care doctor, helping her control and develop her powers. While she doesn't really fight in the field at all, she does provide Bo some really powerful aid. And again, she's part of the light side, and you will begin to see a theme as I go into this. The next two people. The Morrigan, played by Emmanuel Vagier, Vaugier. Did I pronounce that right? I haven't taken French, so I can't tell. Who is a dark aligned Fae. She has a very might makes right sort of viewpoint. If you're not powerful, you don't deserve the power that you have, that kind of thing. The Ash, played by Clay Bennett, is the ruler of the light aligned Fae. He rules a light-aligned Fae with a much more pragmatic viewpoint than the Morgan does. However, he is also loyal to the light side. However, he holds aid, as does the Morgan. With both of them holding aid until Bo aligns herself, Bo is forced to basically sneak around to find the help she needs. Now, she does find help later on, but think about that. If we had that information, if we had all this information ahead of time during this episode, this makes her aligning with the humans much more powerful. I get that we can't cover everything. I get that. Fine. But at the same time, go through everything I have and how many questions have you had answered right now? Do you see where when I say this episode could have been 10 minutes, could have been so much better if it had been 10 minutes longer? All the emotional punches are sacrificed for the sake of brevity. Like when I saw this for the first time, I had no idea what's going on. So when it comes down to it, I got so much more from this episode by knowing a few more minutes of information versus what I got in this episode. That's really my biggest problem with this pilot. So much information is hidden from us. The emotional punches suffer for it. Bo getting kidnapped. We don't know by who. We just know that she is. If we know there's a light and a dark aligned Fae, well, which one is it? We know it's Dyson and Hale, so it's light aligned Fae. So why are they doing it? What is the Morgan doing here? Oh, are they together now? That's really big. What are they doing? And then Bo's absolute rejection of both light and dark aligned Fae has much more punch now. At least for me. This way, we know what she's giving up. We don't know what she's giving up. But with what I know now, it is so much more emotionally satisfying to see her make that choice. Now, as for the rest of the episode, it is actually really well acted. There are one or two scenes here or there that really don't work out that well. Like when Bo first saw Dyson's transformation.
Forget about me! What the hell are you?
You really couldn't have done an extra take here or there. But really, that's all minor. I mean, I can look at it and laugh, and the rest of the series is absolutely great. I mean, granted, you don't need to be Samuel L. Jackson level of actor to do this type of work. They just fit really, really well. The casting director, Lisa Harrison, actually did really well casting their work. These actors are actually within the comfort sphere, and that's a good thing. None of these parts seem way too far out of their wheelhouse. They're clearly skilled in both verbal and nonverbal delivery. There are scenes where I could just look at a character and tell what they're thinking. That is the skill of a good actor. The costuming itself, while simple, does fit amazingly. Bo, for example, has that 2010s hip look, which, by the way, I love Bo's look. Bo's clothes fit and are vaguely sexual, but at the same time, it's very clearly how she likes to dress, and it's functional. It's not like the superhero thing where it's, why are you wearing that all the time? Bo and Kenzie both own it. Their costumes are an extension of themselves, essentially. The Ash and the Morgan both have these wonderful, really expensive upper-class clothing. The sets match, with Bo and Kenzie having this little, dreary, downtrodden, basically, apartment shack. Which, alright, it's really great, honestly. It actually looks like it could be a shack, but it's still big enough to where that can move the camera around. It's not suffering from what sitcoms always seem to suffer from, where with like Friends, where it's a big house in the middle of New York, but they're all waiters. This looks like something Bo and Kinsey could afford. The Ash and the Morgan have these ornate mansions. Dyson's police desk is very cluttered. On top of that, there's always something to make the scene feel alive. Like when Bo and Kenzie are walking down the street, people are passing them. When they enter the alley, there's no one. When they get put into the fight for the death. There are fae that are all around them. They all have each individual look. They're clearly not just background characters. It's like in Star Wars with the cantina scene where every alien has an individual look. It's amazing. So on top of that, look at how these two fae look. Look how these two fae that fight Bo look. See how natural that makeup looks? Every fae in the show looks like this. It's utterly amazing the type of work they do. The music, now that actually leaves a lot to be desired. Now, right here when Bo's leaving. I might have to take this apart, mute this section for copyright, but this music fits Bo. Now listen to this music as she's fighting.
She's probably in there having tea.
This fighting music was made for the show, but it feels more like one of those music packs you get for free from Humble Bundle or something, where it's designed for, where the music itself is designed to be free, or it's not engineered. It's not engineered, or it's not designed specifically for your scene. What they really needed was a good music director to fill out these action scenes. Right now, it's bass plays really fast, drum plays really fast, and that's our action music. Really kind of sucks, honestly. Now, again, like this copyrighted music, great. It's really great. It just doesn't have the oomph that it should. The CGI is great. I mean, you can tell it's 2010 CGI, but it was great for the time. It's kind of like Jurassic Park, where yes, you can see through it now, but there's so much makeup and practical effects that they work out really well. The CGI is used more of not a crutch, but more of an assistant. No, they couldn't find a practical way to get Bo's power done, so they use CGI. Fine. It looks great still. Dyson's changing. Looks terrible in this episode, but later on it gets so much better. Especially once they learn how to use the practical effects with it. Granted, there are a couple times where it's more like, hey, this thing looks weird and off, but it's supposed to. Yes, it's a thing in an alley. But the lighting is correct, so it looks like it's belonging in the alley. It's like you're literally looking at an alien creature that your mind can't exactly process as real. That is the effect they went for. But that's all I have. Check it out if you want. Now, the actress who played Bo, Anna Silk, has a rewatch podcast. I urge you to go watch it. I will go and link it in my description below. And everyone, please have fun and enjoy.